On a Tuesday in February, the wind had a bite. I was mopping the aisle by the coolers when the security monitor flickered, every camera frame jumping like a scratched DVD. It was 3:17 a.m. I remember because the register's receipt printer chirped and spit a blank slip, something it only does when we reboot after thunderstorms. The sky was perfectly clear. The monitor froze on the door camera. The glass looked fogged from the outside, as if someone were breathing against it. I went to the front to check the door, expecting frost or condensation. But the door was dry. I wiped my sleeve across it to be sure, and saw my own face reflected back. Tired eyes, baseball cap, mop line on my pant leg. And a big-ass shadow behind me. I freaked and locked the deadbolt in a panic, then turned around. There was nothing there. I felt stupid for being so scared. Maybe it was my imagination, but I didn't think so. Creeped out, I went back to cleaning. When I returned into the aisle, the chime sounded, the one that pings when the door opens. I thought maybe the owner had remote unlocked it by mistake, but the deadbolt was still turned. The monitor unfroze long enough to show a shape moving across camera 2, the one that points at the coffee island. I saw a shoulder, a sleeve, something pale passing. Then the frame tore into static. I stepped around the end cap. Hello? My voice felt small. The coffee island was empty. The cup towers stood like stacked white teeth untouched. The chime played again. I looked up at the door, still locked. The air felt colder than it should have with all the heaters running. The mop handle rattled against my palm. I pulled my phone to call the owner. No bars. We always had at least one bar here, even in storms. I tried anyway and got the automated emergency alert tone you only hear in tests. It squealed in my ear and cut off by itself. On the floor by the dairy cooler, I noticed drops, not water, dark red drops drying at the edges. I followed them, 3, then 5, then a smudge like someone dragged a thumb across the tile. They led toward the employee door that opens to the stockroom. My key card worked, but I hesitated at the handle. The drops ended at the seam of the door. Nothing seeped underneath. The monitor above the register flashed back on. Every camera, parking lot, coffee island, chip aisle, restroom hall, showed me standing at the stockroom door, and behind me, a second figure, taller, head turned away from the lens, like it knew where the camera was. A sleeve the color of a filthy rag, a gray hand slack at the end of it. My heart sprinted without me. I didn't turn around. I watched myself on the monitor, watched the taller thing behind me lean into me, as if smelling my head. The feed turned to static again, and the door handle went cold under my palm, metal that felt like ice from a chest freezer. I shoved through into the stockroom and slammed it shut. Boxes, the smell of cardboard, a humming soda fridge, the normalness of it anchored me. I braced the handle with a broom and backed to the loading bay. From the front of the store, the chime pinged twice. Door open, door closed. I thought maybe it had left. Then the bay light over my head went out with a soft pop, and in the faint glow of the exit sign, I saw someone had written on the inside of the roll-up door. Not paint. Grease from a mechanic's hands, maybe. 6 letters scrawled at a child's height. I'm back. I did what you should never do on a night with spooky crap. I raised the door. a breath of pungent night air hit me. Diesel, garbage, cold, and the smell of pine from the windbreak. Empty lot. No cars. No tracks on the concrete. I listened. Somewhere beyond the highway, a dog barked once and shut up quick. I eased the door down. When it reached my knee, 3 withered fingers pressed against the outside. A thin, gray, translucent hand with dirt-packed nails reached inside to grab my leg. The door sprang from my hands and rattled back up a foot before I could grab it. The fingers slipped away. I slammed it shut, dropped the latch, and it backed into the dark. The chime sounded again, infinitely far and far too close. I counted seconds. 30 passed, then 60, and my phone finally found a bar. I called the owner first, then the county sheriff. The owner told me to stay put. The sheriff took 7 minutes to arrive. When their spotlights swept through the front windows, all the monitors came back at once like nothing had happened. The deputies found nothing. No prints, no red drops, no forced entry, no footprints by the loading bay. They did find the grease word back and photographed it. By morning, it had vanished, like the door had sweated it off. The drops by the cooler turned out to be a deep red motor oil that we sell, but every bottle was sealed. A week later, the owner scrubbed the footage onto a thumb drive to show the cop who was investigating what happened at the station. In the copy, you can see me mopping, looking up, walking to the door. You can see the frames stop. You can see me freeze at the stockroom door. But the second figure never appears. The reflection of me on the glass door looks wrong in 2 frames, though. The eyes a little higher than they should be, the mouth a little too close to the glass, and no sign of that big shadow thing behind me. I still drive Route 27 sometimes. The station's lights burn like they always have. A forever dawn that keeps nobody safe. Every time the clock in my car clicks to 3:17 a.m., the radio hisses and the emergency alert tone comes softly through the static, even when the stereo is off. I try to forget the fact that I know I'm still not alone. I don't stop for gas there anymore. I count the miles until I see another town, another light, another human face that actually looks human. If you ever work a night shift at a lonely place, get to know your cameras. When they freeze, don't stare at the screen. Don't look around to see if anyone or anything is behind you. Just sprint to lock the doors, go to the light, and do not allow it to enter in. No matter how inviting it makes the chime pings. Don't let it back in. 'Cause it's coming back.
The first night was uneventful. I walked the dog, watered the monstera, and fell asleep on the couch with the TV on low. At 2:41 a.m., my phone buzzed. Ring notification. Motion at front door. I tapped. The live view showed the porch, doormat, dark street. No person, no car. Something moved at the frame edge, like a moth crossing a headlight. Then the feed jumped back 5 seconds on its own. When it caught up, the square of welcome mat light was slightly darker, as if someone had stepped there and left a shadow. I chalked it up to compression weirdness, muted the phone, and went back to sleep. 10 minutes later, motion at garage. The side camera. The garage door was closed, the driveway empty. The light on the garage motion sensor didn't come on, but the ring's little blue LED pulsed as if it saw breathing. The dog's ears twitched, then he whined at the ceiling. I heard it. A light tread across attic plywood. Heel to toe. Heel to toe. Right above the downstairs hallway. 5 steps. then the soft thud of something set down on wood. The dog looked at me like I'd know what to do. I didn't. I woke to the house alarm, home, checked all deadbolts, and stood under the attic hatch staring like it might fall. The family had left a stepladder in the garage, but I didn't fetch it. Instead, I did what cowards do. I turned on every downstairs light, sat on the bottom stair, and listened until 3:30. The attic said nothing more. The second night, the doorbell rang at 1:13 a.m. 3 short chimes, the setting for weekday delivery. The Ring app showed no one, but the activity history marked 3 separate events: 1:13:07, 1:13:11, 1:13:14. I scrolled back to daytime. A mail carrier had scanned a package at 11:10. He turned to go, then turned back, head cocked, listening to something I couldn't hear. He looked past the camera into the dark house. The timestamp stalled for 2 seconds like it skipped a beat. At 2:02 a.m., the attic sounds again. Not pacing, more like wandering. From above the guest room, down the hall, above the living room. Pause over the couch where I had been sleeping, then away. I pulled the couch against the wall, looked up, and said out loud, "I hear you!" The dog hid behind my knees. Night 3, I called the dad. He laughed the way people laugh when they don't want to be rude. "Old house noises, I promise. That ring catches moths like they're robbers." He told me the ladder was in the garage, to check the hatch if it would make me feel better. He hung on. As my hands were shaking, I thought, "Check the hatch! Are you kidding me?" But I knew I had to suck it up and just do it. I put the call on speaker for the trip to the garage like his voice could ward off whatever was up those steps. The ladder was not where I'd seen it the night before. Back in the hallway, the hatch string was swaying. Back and forth. The attic isn't insulated well, and the string always hangs still from its own stiffness, unless something touches it. I stared until my eyes watered from fear. The ring pinged again. Front door. I rushed to see. A person stood on the porch, not on the mat, over it. The lens curved them, but I could make out a black hood and a length of pale face like paste. Their feet didn't show. They didn't breathe fog in the October air. They leaned toward the bell. The camera jumped 5 seconds back, then played again. Now the porch was empty. The dog growled, low and long at the stairs. Steps above us answered, "Heel to toe, scrape. Heel to toe, scrape." I could hear a faint, deep moaning sound. The thing stopped, closer to the hatch than before. I dialed 911. The operator stayed calm. I chose the word intruder because ghost gets you a wellness check. She told me to get outside. I grabbed the dog, ran to the front door, and stopped. On the doormat, pressed into the coir, were 2 heel prints and a single dragging toe between them, facing into the house, as if someone had stumbled through the door without opening it. I thought, yeah, right. That's not creepy. I was totally creeped out, but trying to keep it together. The patrol car rolled up in under 3 minutes. The officers were kind. They checked the attic with their flashlights. Empty. Dust patterned with little nail pops and footprints from an electrician years back. They swept the yard. No ladder in the garage. No marks on the grass. No one under the deck. One officer asked if I'd had any odd calls. The house line had rung twice that day. Caller ID unavailable. With voicemails of nothing but air that had texture, like one of those ocean shells you hold to your ear. The other cop asked if I had been drinking. I thought, if I had, then maybe I wouldn't be so scared out of my mind. They left. I calmed down enough to fall asleep with the TV on full bright, like a kid. The morning felt normal. Coffee in hand, sunlight on the tile, until I opened the binder the mom had left me to check the vet's number. A picture slid out. 3 kids on the porch at Halloween years ago. 2 were the families, recognizable through time. The third stood a step back, hood up, face washed out by flash. The caption on the white border, in the mom's handwriting, "The neighbor's boy. Moved away after..." The sentence ended in a line of ink that trailed off like she'd been interrupted. When the family came back, I told the mom everything. Her mouth went tight, then gentle. There used to be a boy next door. He wandered. Came over every night through the summer, even after we told him to stop. We'd find little footprints on the mat. His parents moved when he started high school and showed clear signs of a mental issue. They sold the house to flippers. Months later, we heard the boy died in an accident. She touched the picture and put it back in the binder. We hear him sometimes. We don't answer the bell or check the house. We've learned to ignore. Before leaving for home, I wanted to check the ring history. At 1:13 a.m. of each night I'd been there, the bell had registered 3 chimes, even on the night my phone never rang. And one more entry I hadn't noticed. 2:41 a.m. Answered at door. There's a clip attached. It shows the open door. My hand in the frame. My sleeve with the Monstera water stain. I never opened the door. I don't even have the key for the screen lock. If you house sit on a quiet street, don't trust the doorbell. If a thing wants in badly enough, they won't wait for you to answer. They'll use supernatural crap you didn't even know could happen. A ring at the door, with no one there. A ladder to the attic. A dragging foot. A deep moan. A crappy camera that poops out on you when you need it most. Never assume a house won't be infested with creepy crap you can't explain. Never.
We thought the storm had passed. The forest was quiet, too quiet for midnight. No crickets, no frogs, not even wind in the trees. Only the occasional crackle from our campfire. I remember saying, "If we hear coyotes, I'm going back to the truck." My friend laughed. I felt comfortable taking care of myself in the woods, but I didn't want to be a coyote dinner either. Then the fire hissed and wind blew out. We felt no breeze, no rain, just darkness. We reached for our flashlights in the dark, but not much help. The beams felt thin, swallowed by the night. The trees seemed closer as we walked around. Then a breeze swept through and left a stench behind. My friend whispered, "Do you smell that?" It was like decaying flesh and crap that smelled disgusting. We both froze when a forced whispering voice in the dark called out, "You won't make it." We both jumped, then looked around to see where that came from. The voice was creepy, that's for sure. It didn't sound like a human. It was loud, encompassing, and sounded hollow. My friend spun around with his flashlight, but the light caught nothing except fog. When we returned to camp, my tent was rising, then the other. We watched them levitate a foot off the ground. We tied them down. It didn't hold. Thinking wind must have caught them, we ran over to bring them down, but they wouldn't budge. Then we saw it. There was something inside the tents, pressing against the sides, causing the fabric to bulge. Then we heard a slight groan. We didn't say a word. We both just turned and took off running as fast as we could, till our flashlights died, till dawn peeked through the treetops. When we finally went back for our gear, the tents were still there, collapsed on the ground. We looked inside and saw our sleeping bags untouched. All our gear was there. By a tent, words were written in dirt. "You won't make it. Home." Then we heard a loud, hollow, echoing growl.